In today's video, we're going to show you how to change the fluid in your transmission on one of these 8 HP 70s, these 8-speed automatic transmissions on these Ram 1500s. So, quick overview. I got the parts here. We're going to jump straight into it, but I just want to kind of tell you a little bit of something about what I did on this time around. I've made videos on doing this before. It's not my first rodeo on doing one of these fluid changes. They do say it's lifetime, but believe what you want. You should change it before 100,000 miles for sure. Probably around 80, 90,000 miles, depending on if you're just using regular use. Maybe a little bit sooner if you were doing some heavy towing. What I did not too long ago was, this truck is new to me. It's got about 120,000 miles or so on it, and I'll get into that in just a second. But it doesn't look like the fluid was ever changed. When you do a fluid change, the filter is integrated into the pan, so you can't change just the filter, but that will change here in just a second. But when you dump the fluid, these things hold about 8 or 9 quarts, but you're only going to get about 4 to 4.5 out of it, maybe even 5, somewhere around that range. So you can get yourself about 5 quarts to be safe. If you really want to be on the safe side, get yourself 6 quarts, but I guarantee you, well, not guarantee, but I'm willing to bet you won't get the full 5 or 6 in there. So what I did last time was I was in a bit of a crunch for time. I have a 24-foot trailer that I haul. It's fairly heavy. So I ended up just replacing the fluid. So there is a drain on these things. I dumped the fluid, put about 4.5 quarts back into it, and figured I would run that for a bit because I had to put about a 6,000 mile trip towing that heavy trailer behind the truck. And now that's over and done with. We had no issues. The transmission worked great. But now I'm going to change the filter, which is integrated into the pan. So I'll link this stuff down below. Whatever it takes, hooked us up with the fluid, so I'll link them if you guys want to go check out them for the fluid, but I'll put the link down below as well for this pan. So Dorman makes a pan. If you want, you can go with the factory Mopar one, but then the filter, it's more expensive than this one, and the filter is not replaceable, whereas this Dorman one, you can buy just the filter for I think about $40 or $50, and you don't have to replace the pan every time. There's really not a reason to have to replace the pan, but since the OEM one, you can't take the filter off, which I'll show you once we get it off. That's why we're going with this one, so that we can just change the filter later. So it's pretty much what you see here is what you're going to need, so let's get into it. One other tool you might want to grab is a 10 mil hex, so you can actually remove the drain plug so that you don't make a really big mess when you go to do this. On the Hemi vehicles, it's a little bit more exciting, whereas the EcoDiesel, the pan is actually fully accessible. It doesn't have that crossover pipe that comes across the pan like it does on the Hemi. So one nice thing about the EcoDiesel, but the other thing is I'll flip this around and show you guys on the Dorman pan. Comes with new hardware, and you can see on the filter it's got all these Phillips screws that hold it in. It's kind of just screws into the plastic. Still has a bunch of magnets, and I think this, don't quote me, but I think this pan has more magnets than the factory one. We'll compare it once we get it out, but as you can see there, also comes with the gasket, so we got everything we need. Let's go and drain the old fluid and get the old pan off. So just before we start this, you guys, you're gonna need to make sure that the rear end of the vehicle is higher than the front. Just the way the transmission sits in the vehicle, you're really gonna have to raise the rear end. And the reason why I'm telling you to do it now is because when you go to fill the transmission, you have to make sure the transmission, not the truck, but the transmission is level. So in order to achieve that, you're gonna have to raise the rear end. So I have it parked on a downward slope, still has the factory rake on it, but we are still gonna have to raise the back end of this truck and even get the wheels off the ground so we can get the truck into second gear. So here we are into the truck. Like I said, I don't have that crossover pipe that you guys would have on your Hemis, and trust me, I've dealt with that before. Same procedure, but just a little bit more of a nuisance having that crossover pipe. But there's our drain. So I'm gonna remove the drain, let it drain into our drain pan here, and then once it's finished draining, then we can remove the bolts and get the pan off. There we go. As you can see, our fluid looks a good color. Like I mentioned, I did replace the fluid. Like I said, I managed to get I just did this drain and then I filled it from the side. And it wasn't that long ago, about 6,000 miles ago, but I do want to get the filter changed as well. But you can see our fluid's still in good shape after those 6,000 miles. But again, I only did replace about half of the capacity of the transmission. So we're gonna let this drain, and then we'll move on to the next step. Also, not a bad practice is to remove your fill plug, which is on the side. Some guys like to do it first. I already had mine off, about a month ago, so I know it's not going to be an issue coming out, but you might want to make sure you can get your fill plug off first
just so you don't run into any potential issues where you drain it and you can't fill it up again. So it's pretty much fully drained, you guys. Now we're gonna take out all of our bolts that are held on by T40. So we're just gonna go around, loosen all the bolts and remove them so that the pan can drop down. Okay, so here we go with all the bolts. Again, nice thing about the Eco Diesels, we can literally just drop this down instead of having to worry about that crossover pipe. So just wiggle the filter off a little bit and have your catch ready, because it's going to be coming a little bit more out of the valve body here. Here's the two pans, you guys. Of course, the one without the fluid is the new one, and I was mistaken, they do have the same number of magnets, so you can see magnet there, and then two at the front. Same thing here, and the only difference, like I said, is this one does not have the screws, but I mean the filter layout and everything is exactly the same, with the exception of no screws, so you can't swap it on this one, whereas this one we can change out our filter in the future. So they both look strikingly similar. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna wipe off the surface. Up to you if you want to use the replacement hardware. You know, if you want to use the factory bolts or these ones look to be good as well, but I'll leave that up to you guys. And then I'm just gonna wipe up the mating surface on the transmission, and then I'm gonna put this pan on. All right, so our surfaces are all wiped up. So I'm gonna go ahead, just double check you don't have any dust or dirt that fell into your pan. And we're gonna go ahead and put this up. So you're gonna locate it on the filter, then you can get a couple bolts in place. So with all your transmission pan bolts tightened and torqued down to spec, we can move on to the filling process. And the fill bolt is right here. It's an 8mm Allen, so we'll remove that. Other thing you will want, make your life easier, is get one of these fluid transfer pumps. You can get them off Amazon. I'll link it down below as well. It just makes getting the fluid out of the bottle and into the transmission much easier. Okay, so it's gonna sound really confusing, but I'll try to do my best to make it as simple as possible. So if you want to be exact, try to get yourself some sort of little level and check to see where you're at as far as where your transmission is. I wouldn't use the pan, I would probably go off the case where you bolted the pan to, unless you can find something that runs parallel. And you're gonna want to make sure it is as level as possible. So this portion is parallel with the actual case, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but we essentially have to raise the back of the truck to get that bubble centered. So the back of the truck has to go up a little bit, and we are on a downward slope with factory rake, and the back still has to come up just a tad. So just keep that in mind, you guys. It's okay because we're gonna chock the front wheels. Got to get the back end up off the ground as well, so that you can put it through the gears, put it in reverse, and you want to try to get it into second gear. So you're gonna put it in drive and get it to shift to second gear as well, so that we can get this up to level. All right, so hopefully you guys can see in that sight glass, we're pretty much level now after raising the rear. So I'm gonna show you guys the procedure, and it has to be a specific temperature and within a specific window for this to all be accurate. So here we go, we got the fluid transfer pump up into there, and we're just gonna pump in until it starts coming out, and then we can start the procedure. And it is a specific procedure on this, but first we'll get it to come out of here, and then we'll move on to that. Okay guys, so I managed to get pretty much 3 bottles into here before it started dripping out. So now we're gonna move on to the fill procedure. All right, so the truck has to be between 86 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, you guys. This is absolutely essential. Otherwise, if you're out of that window of temperature, you're not gonna get the correct fluid reading. It's not gonna be at the correct height. So you have to make sure it's between 86 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit. You can check it on the dash, or if your dash doesn't have it, you're gonna have to hook up a scan tool. But this dash will show you the transmission temperature. But for now, we're gonna start it, let it just idle, and we're gonna fill it until it starts running out again, and then I'll show you guys the next step. So here we go, we're gonna start it up. We're just gonna leave it in park, and then we're gonna go down there and fill it up. Okay, so you guys are gonna see it trickling out, so we're gonna cap it. So here we go, transmission temp 116, because it's super hot outside right now. I think it's 108 out, so we don't have much time. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna put it in reverse, hold it. Then we're gonna put it into neutral. We're gonna put it into drive, and you can do this several times. But what you wanna do is get the truck to second gear. So you wanna put it in drive until you hear it, feel it, hit second gear. And you might have to disable traction control, you guys, in order for the truck to actually rotate the rear wheels. So there you go, we hit second gear. The system's gonna freak out because it doesn't see the front wheels moving, but as soon as you drive it around the block again, you'll be fine. So we'll do it again. So we hit second gear, slow it down, apply the brakes gently since your wheels are gonna be moving. Put in neutral, put in reverse again. Just cycle it a few times through the various positions. We're at 118 degrees, so we've only got a couple more degrees, so let's run down there and check the fluid level with it still running in park.
Okay, so now we'll take out this fill drain, fill plug. Probably not going to be trickling. If it is, it's kind of got a slow dribble. I think we can probably add a tiny bit, but I think we're good on our level. Add and cap it, you guys. And we'll tighten and torque this down and we're done. All right, so the drain is tight and we're done. We can go up top. All right guys, it's gonna be a wrap for the video. So I'll link all the stuff that we use down in the description below. You guys can see how to change that fluid for your 8-speed transmission. I'll keep you updated, but like I said, I've done a bunch of towing miles changing the transmission fluid with that procedure. Haven't had any issues. I've done it on several trucks now, no issues. So safe to say you can do it that way. I know a lot of people say, you know, do it this way, do it that way, but like I said, as long as you get it in that temperature range between 86 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, make sure it's within that range when you're checking it. Make sure that the transmission is level, cycle it through the gears, try to get into second gear in the drive position. So try to get the vehicle up to, you know, into second gear safely, of course, and, you know, cycle it through reverse, neutral, all the different positions. Check your fluid with it running, and then you're good to go. So that's the procedure. I didn't design it. It's a bit of a weird one, but it is what it is. If you enjoyed this, found it helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. See you guys on the next video.